Good evening, everyone. So today is a Tuesday night. So we're going to do a practice of a meditation, a guided meditation. Namato Ratana Tayasa. May I pay homage to Triple Gem, the Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangha. My respect goes to my parents and my teachers. So good evening, my friends in the Dhamma. So today is the 25th of January 2022, the Tuesday evening. And as usual, on the Tuesday evening, we will have a guided meditation and Dhamma discussion. So we have just finished our evening chanting, which we done only half of it compared to the everyday chanting. And this is time to practice meditation. So before the actual practice, I would like to encourage you to write your questions, if you have any, on the comment end of the meditation. We can discuss on that. Any questions related to a meditation or on Buddhism, you can ask on a comment box. So in our life, we are constantly learning new things every day, and we are learning a new subject, new words, and even new things about our own life, new things about our own understanding, new things about our own realization. Every single day, we are learning. So this whole life is a process of a learning to know, learning to achieve, and learning to liberate. So, learning to know, again, there are various ways that we learn to know things for different purposes. In general, we want to know our skills, or developing different skills so that we can use those skills to earn the bread for our day-to-day livings and a prosperity by accumulation of decent wealth so that we can live happily. So this knowing is simply like a stick to walk on this worldly living that gives us comfort and security and feel happy. And this development help us to be confident in our living life without any worries and troubles. In the meanwhile, there is another form of a learning, and that is learning to know, to understand, and eventually to liberate ourselves. And this form of a learning is comes in a Buddhist meditation. According to Buddhism, we are here to perfect our perfection, and this perfections, once fulfilled, our journey ends in this samsara, the life that we have to come back again and again in this different realms of this world. We can check our own activities, which activity that we are more skilled, more a proficiency in it. Some are good at being kind, others are good at being helpful, others being good at wisdom, analytical understanding, and others are good at maintaining their words and etc. So every action that we perform, it has a reaction and it does matter to ourselves and the people around us and to the society. The moment when we fully understood our actions, which is the result of our understanding of the nature, each action that we perform will help us to take the right or the wrong path, an accumulation of wholesome and unwholesome deeds that again leads to the happy and unhappiness life in this world as well as hereafter. So practice of a meditation is then a skill that we are learning here to know things as they truly are, so that we can understand a reality pertaining to itself and liberating ourselves by accumulation of a wholesome deeds rather than unwholesome, and could brings repenting on it later in life. Now, practice of a meditation is not that simple, although the method appears to be simple. It takes time, it takes energy, it takes your dedication and determination. And with that, all the principles being applied, it will bring the result. And it's a matter of exercise that brings the fruit. Like when you go to gym, it's not a fact that visiting only one session at the gym you will get the big muscles in your body. It takes a regular practice, consistency, and a regularity will eventually give you that fulfillment. And this is same in the practice of a meditation. One cannot attain the higher stages of the meditative blissness by practicing one day, but continuously practicing and a consistency, continuity, and a dedication will brings a fruit eventually. So that the Buddha encouraged us to practice in everyday life. So as we are here, a gathering at this time to practice meditation. So let's start meditating, sitting in a comfortable position, and bringing your mind and heart to the moment here and now, observing your body sitting. Doesn't matter which way you are sitting. You're sitting on a sofa, you're sitting on a chair or on a floor. The matter is you're sitting comfortably and relax the entire body. Let all the tensions and the worries and the tiredness away. And just be aware of entire body as it is sitting here and now, fully connected. Or you may offer a big warm hug to yourself. So mentally hugging to yourself as you hug to others, connecting to your own physical body. And being with your body, knowing entire body. What's going on in your body now? What can you feel? What can you see? What can you observe within your body? And there comes the breath. You realize there is a breath coming in and going out. And with the breath coming in and going out, there are so many varieties of sensations taking place. In different parts of the body, you can observe. Now, the observation of this breath, you can control the breath and you can regulate the breath as you wish. You can make it longer, you can make it shorter, you can stop it for some time, you can take it long, slowly, smoothly. So you can play with it. So as you're playing with the breath, you realize that there is the end of each breath and it requires the changes in the breath coming in and going out. And that is not in your control. It is a natural breath coming in and going out. So that's why breathing is functioning in its own way or involuntarily and voluntarily in our wish. So we can play with it or you can work with it. So in order to work with it, first of all, we have to see it and know that it is there. And gently aware of it as it comes in and as it goes out. Or simply you can observe its rises and falls in your belly as breathe in and breathe out takes place. It's a simple method. All required is your attention. Your attention to pay close attention to it, with your intention to pay attention to on it. And paying your attention to on it and observing it objectively as they truly are. So in this moment, we are not playing with it, but we are working with it by seeing and knowing. And at this time, try to observe what happens as breathe in and breathe out takes place. What happens in your body? What form of sensations, where that takes place? And what is your reaction to that feelings? Does it remains the same or does it changes? So having a very alert mind to know things as they appear, know things as they arises, and keep reminding yourself that you are just an observer, like a bird watcher living in a height and watching the birds play. There is no interference with it. All you're doing is watching through the glass all the birds play. Similarly, as you feel the sensations, you're observing the phenomena that are taking place and observing it objectively. So continue practicing this way. And if you are finding difficult to concentrate, your mind is still restless, then spend a little bit of more time paying attention to the breath, by observing breathing in and breathing out, arising and falling, until your mind settles down and whatever objects arises, observing them objectively, noting and let it go back to the object. So continue practicing in this way until you hear the gong. And just again a reminder, if you have any questions on meditation, you can type on a comment box. Okay, so this is time for the discussion. So one question comes from Yvonne saying, are there any discourses on selflessness or emptiness of self or different kinds of self? That is one of the very profound teachings of the Buddha. And this, on the topic of discourses, Buddha gave very first five disciples the second discourse. It's called Anatta Lakkhana Sutta. That basically means anatta means a non-self, lakkhana means a characteristics. So discourse on the characteristics of anatta, or the non-self, or no self. And normally, in relation to the self, it's a really difficult subject because we all are attached to ourselves. And this is not just us, and it was during the time of the Buddha, and also now, and it will be in the future. It's a very common question, and that's a very difficult question to comprehend, as we are all attached to our own self. We attach to our names, attached to our nationality, attached to our ethnicity, religion, and so on. And not only the attachment of these outer entity, or the identities that is given to us, and we hold on to it and we project ourselves as this is me, but we also attach to our own self. Sorry. And our self, according to Buddhist perspectives, is divided into two parts, that is, mind and a body. And this mind and a body again divided into five different aspects of it. It's called the aggregates, it's panchakhanda. And on this panchaskanda or panchakhanda, or five aggregates, that's a combination of five things. One is rupa, as a matter, or the body, the material things that is made of four elements. So this material object does not feel and does not have any emotional activities. There are other four aggregates, or the factors. The one is called the Vedana, or the feelings. The second is called the Sanya, or a perception. And the third is the will, or the karma formation. So forming intentionally, it's called a Sankhara. And the last one is a consciousness, or the Vijnana. So combination of these four factors is known as the mind. And what happens that untrained person tends to attach to this five aggregates: the rupa, the matter, the vedana, the feelings, and the sanya, the perception, and the intentionally doing things, and the consciousness or the knowing. And that creates the identity. And now it was the time of the Buddha that persist this thought, and people were trying to purify this so-called self in various ways, in various terms. And as a result of that, famous practices were there at that time. The first practice is called the um, Kama Sukhallikana Yoga, known as the self essential pleasure. So, following the path to fulfill the sensual pleasures so that we can purify ourselves. A purification of ourselves by consuming as many as or as much as the mind desires or wishes. So, this view is a materialistic view and fulfilling our desire non stop and in every ways fulfilling it. And the second practice that people were practicing in those days called Atta Kilometana Yoga, or the self mortification, the torturing oneself by doing various yogas, not even eating or standing on one feet, one foot, or hanging on the trees and so on. Simply torturing this physical body, thinking that purifies the mind. And that's how one will be able to purify their self, so called atta. And the Buddha also practiced these two ways and found that it doesn't lead to the complete realization, so that he chose the path called the middle path, a Majjhima Patipada. And practicing that, he was able to understand a true self, ability to distinguish vividly each factors of the perception of a self, that this is me or mine, and eventually realize that there is no self. And there is also one discourse that comes apart from the Anatta Lakkhana Sutta. So the Anatta Lakkhana Sutta is the discourse on the characteristics of a non-self. Buddha gave this for the first time to the five ascetics as the second discourse of the Buddha in his dispensation. He simply speaks about that if this matter is a self, we should be able to control over it. We should be able to make it stop. But it's a matter that this body itself is involuntarily working by itself. We have no control over it. It will grow and eventually it will die. It's like a tree. As long as conditions are conducive for it to survive, it will survive and grow. But the condition dissolves, it also dissolves. But we have no control over it. We want to be young and beautiful at all the time. So we are not. Similarly, we will be attached to feelings and perceptions and karma formation and our even knowing, the vijnana, the consciousness, which is again, it's not a permanent entity. We have no control over it as long as these has got the conditions, and it will survive and sustain and continue. But eventually, as the condition dissolves, then it will go. There is another discourse called the Takarata Sutta. And Takarata Sutta is another beautiful story that Buddha talked about, saying, Atitang nanva makaya napatikanke anakatang. Or basically means one should not be uh, longing of the past and should not be worrying about the future, but living in the present moment. And a person who is thinking of the past and the future will not be able to divert the death, because death will certainly be there, and who knows, it could be tomorrow. So be heedless and practice and live in the present moment. And here the question comes how one lives in the past and how one lives in the future, and how one lives in the present moment. And the Buddha discussed further on that topic and saying that people will be thinking that my form or this matter was like that. So here basically talking about our young age that we used to be and we love to be and we want ourselves to be in that situation. So young and healthy and energetic and strong. A similar way, I was like that and I will be in that way. So this kind of a thought are there. Yeah? And even thinking that will be delighting and carried away with that form and the feelings, whatever feelings, such as we have a good feelings and the um, feelings of nice moments. We'll be thinking that in the past I had such feelings, and I want it to be back again. Or as we have further on, I used to think about this one, or I had this form of a perception. And this perception, again, if we look at closely, our perception is changing every single day, every single moment of our experience. Each time when we have a new day, we come across with the things, and our perception to that particular things will change. So that's why we should not be hanging on to the past and holding on to the same perception that we had. Similarly, with the thought fabrication and a consciousness. And in the same way, people also expect, they're placing their expectations in the future, and they carried away with the delight of it in the future, thinking that I might have such a form. And so again here, form or a matter of this body, thinking that my body should be in this way or that way in the future. let's say by eating some form of uh, um, supplement supplements that you can get in a high-end markets, and there will be a great um, advertisement about it that if you take it, your body will be nice and looking young and so on. So like that, similar to the feelings, the perception, the thought fabrication, and the consciousness. So untrained mind will be thinking of this in a different forms with a delusional state or illusional thought, not knowing what should be known. And whereas in a present moment as well, where in a present moment, there are cases where an uninstructed uninstructed person, and a run off the mill person, kind of rumbling and going around again and again in the same stories, who has not seen and who hasn't come across with the right teachings and the wise ones, and is not verse or is not qualified or haven't learned the teachings of a wise ones, and is not trained to see this form as selfless, but he will or she will observe this form as a self, or a self as a possessing form, or a form is self, or self as in form. So there are four different ways of thinking of this form or this matter as a self. So form as a self, or self as a possessing form, a form is in self, or self as in forms. And similarly, they also use feeling as self, self as a possessing feeling. A feeling is in self, self as in feeling. Similarly, the perception, thought processes, and a consciousness as self, and a self-possessing consciousness, self-possessing, or a self as a possessing, so on. But whereas a trained person, one who has seen the teachings properly and been practicing on it, will see that that person does not see form as self, or self as a possessing form, or form as in self, or self as in form. So which is similar to the feelings. Now, I would not think it as a self, or a possess self as a possessing feeling, or a feeling as in self, or a self as in feeling. So does the perception, karma formation, or thought processes, and consciousness. So that's how a person will live in the present moment, by understanding that entire these five aggregates are not a self. So this is how one would understand that selflessness. And this is what needs to be understood. And further on, as long as we are attached to this form, we would not be able to comprehend the teachings properly. That's how we are wandering in the worldly matter, worldly affairs. But the moment when we able to overcome of this attachment of our own self, then we have attained the first ladder to the noblehood called the Sakaya Ditti. So, in a short form, the Buddha talks, saying that talks about the selflessness by saying Panchupadana Khanda as a suffering. So, attachment to the self, these five aggregates leads to the suffering. In the same way, the moment when a person would able to overcome by not having an attachment to these five aggregates attains the first noblehood called the Sotapanna, stream enterer, by eradicating or overcoming the attachment of a self or identity of a own self as a permanent, so called the Sakaya Ditti, personality view. So that's why the entire teachings of the Buddha is to understand this self, and understanding that this self is not exist in ultimate sense. And once the moment when we understood properly the existence of this self as a conditioned aroused, in that moment we are in a way becoming a real Buddhist, so that we are leading towards to be the Buddha, called a Savaka Buddha, one who is in line to realize the teachings of the Buddha and becoming one of them. So that's why the teachings of a selflessness is the key factor of the teachings of the Buddha. And all the problems that we have in the present moment, if we look at carefully, it is simply because of the existence of a self and a holding onto that self, an identity of it, causes the troubles and the conflicts and crises and so on. And because of holding on to the self, we generate our greed, we generate hatred, and we do not know what should be known. And with that, there is a cruelty starts, harmness begins, there will be no compassion, there will be no kindness, there is no caring and sharing, there is no generosity, there will be more corruption, self-centered, egocentric, and only doing things for personal good. So much of the time, greed driven activities will be carried. So that's why the moment when we drop ourself, the existence of a self, and understanding the nature of ourself as similar to the grass, then there will be no trouble. So Buddha used the simile of a grass and a trees. There are so many varieties of a grass, but they always classified as a grass, and they will not be fighting over another that I am a better grass than you are. Similar to the trees, there is no trouble with the trees that I am bigger, I am stronger, I am longer than yours. There will be no fighting, as only categories of the categories of a tree or the grass. But we as human beings are very clever and cunning, clever, classifying ourselves or identifying ourselves as a white or a black or an Asian or a European or this religion or that religion, or I am this much qualified and you are not. I have this much money, this much prosperity, and you are not, and so on. With that, a society becomes um, dysfunctioned and brings more trouble. And that's simply on the basis of the concept of the existence of a self and a greed driven. And because of a greed driven, if you do not get what you wish for, then that again generates the hatred and ill will and the jealousy and even to harm or even to ready to kill. And so there are so many violent activities going on, even the wiping out the entire ethnicity going on. And that's simply based on this existence of a self. So Buddha's teachings is basically overcoming that self and seeing the entire human beings, and not only human beings, but the entire existence as a part of a ecosystem. So we become not the part of the ecosystem, but a part of an ecosystem, treating everybody equally. And meanwhile, Buddha further saying that entire cosmos, all the beings, once upon a time we had been probably a mother or a brother or a wife or a husband or a close relatives, because we have been born on this cycle of existence, the samsara, so many times it's uncountable that it's very difficult to predict that the entire cosmos, all the beings that exist, once upon a time they had been a close relatives. Who knows, could be a wife or a husband or a brother or sisters or a mother and a father. So once a person look at in this way, one will drop the existence of a self away, but developing this consciousness of a relativeness, consciousness of connectedness, and consciousness of being belonged to, and with that become a conscious of existence of oneself and then to others, and then others. So that's why whatever action one performs, that action will be not only for the benefit of an individual, but also will consider the benefit of a person who close to us and the members of the community. And that benefit is regarded as the proper benefit. So that's why Buddhism always encourages everyone to learn to be kind, learn to be compassionate, and learn to be respect one another, being truthful and being alert, awake in day-to-day life. So the entire teachings of the Buddha, that's why, is being alert, awake, and living in the present moment. And that is the Buddha nature. So entire a life that we are here is basically changing our perception by learning to know, learning to see things as they truly are. And eventually, once the perception become cleared, we fully understood, then we will attain the enlightenment, the Buddhahood. So this is the teachings of the Buddha. So, and also the different kinds of a self. So even the second question, different kinds of a self. Although there is a non-self, but we still have this existent self. This is again the concept of the a language that we have to use in a conventional level to understand that this is exist, but eventually it doesn't. There is a simile given in the one of the commentaries, so-called the Milinda Panha, or the question of a King Milinda. And the story is that King Milinda was a king from Yonok, or a Western king, was conquering the India after the Alexander. King Melinda was in charge of and that part of the world, and he was quite a knowledgeable person, and he was debating with the different faiths, faith and knowledge. So he was basically the hunter of knowledge, and he came to contact with one of the monks called the Nagasena, and this conversation between the King Melinda and the Nagasena on that book, the first chapter begins with this the concept of a self. The story is quite interesting. As when Nagasena was invited for the debate in the palace, Nagasena refused to have a debate in the palace, saying that in the palace, king is the king, so he has full order. Whether king wins or whether king loses, he has the power to summon the order. So Nagasena invited king to the temple for the debate, and as the a king came to visit the Nagasena at that time, uh, straight away Nagasena King Melinda asked to the Nagasena that where is the Nagasena? Yeah, and then Nagasena said, Nagasena is a person that given by a name that is given to this person. So where is Nagasena? Is it the hand? Is it the head? It is the limbs of the, go on with the different limbs of the body as it is here Nagasena. And the Nagasena said, no, no, no. And then eventually Nagasena was asked, then where is a Nagasena? And in reply, Nagasena used the simile of a chariot, saying, where is, their majesty, your majesty, how did you come? Their majesty, the King Melinda, said to the Nagasena that I came on a chariot. And then Nagasena asked, where is the chariot? Is it a wheel? Is it a horse? And it goes on with the different parts of the chariot. And a king had to reply that a chariot is not a part of this whole chariot, but the entire each function, each part, when it comes together, it is known as a chariot. So the Nagasena said, so it is, Your Majesty. A Nagasena is a combination of in all these limbs and parts. Once all these comes together, then that becomes a Nagasena. So this is how it defined by a self. So in a conventional level, a self exists, but in an ultimate sense, once you have fully understood then that's how one becomes selfless. So in a way, it's like you are looking at the signpost towards the destination. So there is existence of a signpost and as well as the destination. The signpost is not the destination, but we have to rely on a signpost to go to the destination. So this is how one can understand the self and non-self. So this is the selflessness and different kinds of a self. And in terms of the emptiness, again, there are also a one big chapter on emptiness in the fourth Nikaya, called a Samyukta Nikaya. And there are also a few discourses on the Majjhima Nikaya as well on emptiness, that how things are empty. And this is another different, very difficult subject as well, similar to anatta. And in the Mahayana tradition, like in Tibetan Buddhism and in Chinese Buddhism, emptiness become a main focus point. So that the five aggregate is emptiness, but emptiness also the five aggregate. And the concept of emptiness is like when there is nothing, there is something. When there is something, then there is nothing. Like that. Yeah. So the selflessness is not emptiness, but the emptiness is a place where there is no selflessness. Something like that. So there's another philosophy, and particularly Madhyamika philosophy of Tibetan Buddhism or Mahayana tradition is based on this concept of emptiness. So I hope that I have explained all these three matters that Yvonne asked. It's quite a heavy subject today. So if anybody has got any other questions to ask, you're most welcome. But it's already 46 now, another 15 minutes. I just had a booster vaccine today, so I don't know what the effects will be. As I know, for now, I have this the heavy arm, the left arm at the moment. But hope nothing too serious. Feeling a little hot. Like this evening, I was just contemplating and focusing on this vaccine and meditating on that, and I was like observing the effects, and I could see some form of a difference in my body temperature, and also unusual a vibration in my heart as well. But the rest is so far so good. So this is how it works. Okay, so thank you, Yvonne. In this case, let's practice. Thank you, Margaret. I hope there will be no side effects. Okay. So in that case, so thank you everyone for joining with us, practicing meditation on a Tuesday night. Now, before ending, let's practice the loving kindness meditation to finish off. Okay. And let me see if there is any other. Okay, nobody has got any questions. Okay. Right. Okay. Let's practice loving kindness meditation. Thank you, Tune Sandra. I will. Let's practice loving kindness meditation. Okay, so bring your attention to the moment here and now. Relax yourself for a moment. Reflecting a few moments on the today's practice, and particularly today's discourse on a selflessness. And bring your attention to the body, awareness of your body, allowing yourself to relax, and bring your attention to your heart. Feel the beating heart. And allowing yourself to be happy by sharing loving kindness and compassion to yourself, telling inwardly to yourself, may I be happy. May I be free from suffering. May I be free from hostility. May I be free from ill will. May I be free from anxiety. May I be able to maintain my well-being and happiness. Similarly, sharing loving kindness and compassion to all other sentient beings. Starting from near dear one, those who are around us, those who are around you, in the house, in the community, in the country, on earth, in the universe, visible and invisible beings, sharing loving kindness and compassion of whatever beings there are. May everyone abide in well-being. May everyone be free from hostility. May they be free from suffering. May they be free from ill will. animosity. May they be free from anxiety, stress, depressions. May they be able to maintain their well-being and happiness. May all beings be free from all kinds of calamities and suffering. And may they not be parted from the good fortune they have attained. May all beings be happy. May all beings be well. May all beings attain supreme happiness of Nibbana. So bring your attention to the body again, and to your eyes. And as you hear the gong, slowly come out from meditation. Let's pay respect to the Buddha Dhamma Sangha. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivate Sawakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipanno Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho Sanghang Namami. Okay, so thank you everyone. Thank you Margaret, Tune, Sandra, Yvonne, and Pirapon, and everyone, Amkas, everyone. So thank you and good night. Stay safe, take care, and we'll see you tomorrow for the chanting. If you have any question that you want me to answer, you can drop a message as well. I will cover other days. So thank you and good night.